Hi, everyone. Welcome to Smart Girl Dumb Questions live at the Comedy Cellar. I think nobody knows about grift the way my guest does, Patrick Radden Keefe. And you are not a grifter.
Not so far as you know.
He is a legendary New Yorker staff writer, the best-selling author of multiple books, including my personal favorite, Empire of Pain, Say Nothing, Rogues, and his latest, London Falling, which has been on the bestseller list for 7 weeks now. You have written about the Sacklers, you've written about El Chapo, you've written about billionaires being swindled and swindling. And I'm just curious, Patrick, who hurt you?
I wish there was some great anecdote about the terrible thing that happened to me in childhood, but I've just always been very interested in people behaving badly.
And you don't have a beat at The New Yorker.
I mean, don't per se. I do end up often writing about people behaving badly.
Yeah, you have a type, as we say in dating.
I have a type, yeah,
You
exactly.
like a bad boy.
Yeah. I do. I like the bad boys.
Yeah.
And I have a kind of an approach. So I often write these big investigative stories, but they really are stories. They are, there are kind of characters or people front and center, and hopefully there's a kind of dramatic momentum.
This book, Rogues, for example, the subtitle, Grifters, Killers, Rebels, and Crooks. It starts with a member of the Koch family, K-O-C-H, being swindled, and it ends with Anthony Bourdain. In the middle, you meet El Chapo, you meet Steve Cohen, who was never indicted, never prosecuted, but was investigated for many years by Tribeca for insider trading.
And now owns the Mets.
Yeah. Is that the right reward for
yeah, exactly.
His non-crime?
This is his punishment, right?
Exactly. He didn't get the Yankees. What to you is the through line between all of these characters in your investigative melodrama beat?
Smart girl. Dumb questions.
I mean, the first thing I would say about this book, Rogues, is I put it together with Bill Thomas, my longtime editor at The New Yorkers, at Doubleday, who's here tonight. And we were kind of going back, just sort of pulling the pieces that meant the most to me. And as I was writing them, I never thought of a through line. But in retrospect, when you look back at the pieces I've done over 20 years, and particularly the ones that meant the most to me, there kind of are these weird continuities. It's about the power of personality and the way in which people kind of leverage their own personal charisma to change the world and to kind of reshape it to their own to their own aims, their own ends. And so sometimes that's, it's Chapo Guzman kind of reinventing the drug business, or it's Anthony Bourdain, who I will say is like the one outlier in that he's not really a crook.
I felt it was kind of like I know you. It feels like you like him. You like him?
Oh, I loved him. And the thing is, he would have loved being included in a book like this. Like if you knew him, his kind of love of like badassery in every form.
Is this why you added Rebels?
Well, Rebels was actually, interestingly, I think I can say in the safe space here at the Comedy Cellar, there were legal considerations. Because there are...
What did you want to say in this safe space?
I mean, if you think about it, there are a number of people who are characterizing here, and you don't want to create a situation in which you say, all right, I've got this book of profiles, and it is about grifters, killers, and crooks.
Yeah, and Steve Cohen's
and if somebody's... Yeah, exactly. If there's somebody who was never indicted, that might create a situation. So we say, Steve Cohen, total rebel.
Yeah.
Owner of the Mets.
I did ask Claude if you were funny.
What did Claude say?
What do you think Claude said?
I think Claude probably said yes. No?
Claude had some shade. Claude said, funnier than his subject matter would suggest.
That's all I want. Listen, that is where I want to set the bar.
In my mind, like these stories are very American because I have in my mind like this Venn diagram, like Kamala Harris, I love Venn diagrams. Like the left side is like ambition, drive, good. That circle's good. And the right side is like, crime, killing, grift, bad. And in the middle of the intersection of the Venn diagram is like Elizabeth Holmes, like also not good. But how do you have like the ambition, or what do you think distinguishes someone who has the ambition but doesn't drift into grift versus has ambition and drifts into grift, especially for such an ambitious city and probably room as we have here tonight?
What a great question. The drift to grift.
Yes. You can use it for your next podcast.
Believe me, I was going to say, and you got a thing with subtitles.
Yeah.
It's so interesting because what I'm thinking about actually is my book about the Sackler family, and the whole
Empire of Pain.
first section of that is about Arthur Sackler, who's the kind of patriarch of the family. And he is this fantastically charismatic, ambitious, idealistic guy who in a lot of ways is sort of, he's kind of emblematic of like everything we would think of as part of the American dream.
Yeah.
The child of immigrants, will prosper through education, very idealistic in the early going, and just kind of works harder and thinks harder than anyone else, pioneers all these different industries, and then ends up kind of devising all of the advertising, the totally deceptive pharmaceutical advertising strategy that will be used to sell OxyContin and create the opioid crisis. I should say, in fairness to Arthur's descendants, none of whom are going to be here tonight. I have a feeling.
I saw at least 18 Sacklers registered.
If they were here, they would all point out that he died before the introduction of OxyContin, and therefore was pure as the virgin snow.
Yes.
But that kind of drift, right, where you have these qualities that we think of as kind of exciting and laudable. And I think actually on the page, like for me, as somebody who's telling stories, these characters are fun to read about. You want to kind of draft after them and follow them. But I think very, very often it is a feature of capitalism, maybe especially in America, but I think anywhere really, that the kind of temptation to drift into grift is there, and it's strong. And I think the really interesting thing to me is that it doesn't, with any of these people that I've written about, these kind of quote unquote bad people, they never get there overnight. They always get there by degrees. Yeah. And what's interesting to me is that it's the way it's these like little incremental deviations from the sort of what we would think of as the kind of conventional moral path.
Do you think there's a little bit of Hollywoodization, or even in the writing, like you make a meal out of that moment? Like there's a moment in London Falling where he meets the guy from Chelsea football, like Mark Foley, and he starts to spin, which we'll get to. But do you think there's like a temptation to create a scene from that moment?
Okay, well.
Oh, no.
I'm going to act like I'm not bristling all over after the use of the word Hollywoodization. How long you got, sister?
Go ahead, go for it.
Okay, so...
Take me to task.
All right. So these books are all nonfiction, right? If you go to the end of the books, there are these
sources,
dense endnote sections, which nobody ever reads, but they're there in case you get to a moment and you think, well, how could he possibly know that? He must be imagining that. You'd be surprised how many people will sort of say, oh, and then you invented that. You sort of imagine what they said, right?
I'm not.
I know that's not what you're accusing me of.
No, I'm not at all. I actually, I know because you work at the New Yorker, that you go through a rigorous fact check process, and I'm sure you take it to your writing. I don't think that the scene is invented. I think that the importance of the scene and that person's transformation, like metamorphosis, the storytelling.
Well, so this is what I would say. So all rigorously factual, but arranged in a narrative. Yeah. And there is and there are a bunch of reasons why I do that. It's partially that I think that we process information best when it's told to us as a story. I grew up in a house where people are constantly telling stories. I think as humans, we like to be told stories. I think you can arrange even really complex information into a story in a way that makes it pleasurable and more accessible. Like if I told you I've got a 500-page history of the Troubles, your heart might sink. But if I tell you this story that starts with a mother being taken away from her children in this apartment in 1972, that's a kind of a way in. The thing I think you're getting at, though, is this question of emphasis, where you have like a rosebud moment. You have a scene that you know is a scene; it's a factual scene, but you might wonder if is it really load-bearing enough to kind of handle this whole story.
And I'm asking it as like a self-help exercise, because I think there are a lot of people in this city, in this room, in the world who are enraptured by like their own ambition, their own desire, who they want to become. And I wonder if like you have a kind of sense of that metamorphosis moment, and also like if you can caution us of like what brings people to the dark side.
Yeah, I mean, I don't.
Like we need like
there's a lot
speed
there.
bump.
There's a lot there. Yeah. I mean, I do think it's helpful to sort of be honest with ourselves. This is the thing I think about a lot, because with the Sacklers, if you just bear with me for one moment, there's a moment in my book about the Sacklers where there were these two Sacklers who were finally hauled before Congress, and one of them was this guy David Sackler, who's like a third generation Sackler, son of Richard Sackler. He's on the board, et cetera, et cetera. And he was asked by one of these congresspeople in this testimony about, the idea was essentially like the company's declaring bankruptcy, but the family's taken all this money out. And one of these congressmen said, and sir, do you have any comment on this, during this time when the company was sort of in free fall, and did you or did you not spend $23 million to buy a luxury home in Santa Barbara or someplace in California?
What a bad place to buy
Bel
a
Air.
luxury
I don't
home.
know. I'm sure I'm getting the place wrong.
Yeah.
It's in the book.
Yeah.
It's in the endnotes. And David Sackler very quickly says, no, wait, hold on. That was an investment property. I've never spent a night in that place. So his impulse when confronted with that story is to be that old Benz, I haven't even driven that yet.
Yeah, it wasn't me.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't
to quote
me, right?
Shaggy, yeah.
And but it's the idea of he's so deluded that he thinks that that's an exculpatory thing to say. That to tell Congress and the American people that house, it was just an investment. I don't even stay there. What's interesting to me is how they get there. And so for me, to the extent that I have advice for anyone, it's look very hard at yourself in the mirror every morning and sort of try, I think most of us should have people around us who can check us before we get to David Sackler territory, or frankly, Donald Trump territory, right? If you're surrounded by people who yes you
who lick
all
you
day,
up and down. Yeah.
It is bad for you.
Do you have a favorite Sackler?
Oh, boy.
Arthur, the good guy?
I think it would probably be Arthur. He's just such a charisma. I mean, I'm hesitating. I'm just sort of hesitating because I don't want to kick someone when they're down. Joss Sackler, David's wife, actually, one time fashion designer, mountaineer, linguist. But there was a whole sort of interesting moment where at the height of all the controversy, Josh introduced a vanity fashion line. And there was a big article in the New York Times that Matt Schneier wrote about her fashion line and how pissed off she was that everybody kept talking about the opioid crisis and not
and not her fashion line.
Not her Dayglow lycra dresses. Yeah.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
It seems like we live in a moment of fraud porn in our society. We have, the countless documentaries, films, et cetera, about Elizabeth Holmes, George Santos, Inventing Anna, the Netflix documentary. Anna Delvey is, in fact, here tonight with us.
In the house.
In the house. Hi, Anna. We'll come back to you, Anna, don't worry. But is this world new of grift, or is this age old?
Oh, it's age old. Yeah. I mean, it's Netflix is new.
Yes, Netflix is new. But this kind of human behavior is...
Totally.
And it's not...
as old as time itself.
How is it different? Because take the Sacklers, for example. They were first found guilty in 2006 for criminal...
Their company was.
The company
they were
was,
not,
they
importantly.
were not.
If one of their lawyers is in the room, which we shouldn't rule out.
Yes.
They would tell you they were never convicted of
They
anything.
were never convicted of anything, yes.
Yeah.
But the company, Purdue Pharma, was first found guilty of criminal charges in 2006.
Yeah.
And then fast forward, it's a decade later, and these guys are still going at it. So I guess, what does that reveal to you? Take it to Epstein, take it to Harvey Weinstein, take it to Sackler. The kind of the tenure of bad behavior and the multiple 9 lives that these cats have. What does that say to you?
I think the first thing you asked is about the kind of popular fixation on these types of things, and we should get to that later when we talk about this book, because I do think that there are these sort of weird cultural archetypes right now where instead of cautionary tales, I think for some people these types of stories are actually kind of aspirational fantasies that you can be a grifter. The thing with people getting away with it, whether it's Epstein or the Sacklers or whoever, I just think it's our system is effectively rigged in favor of these types of people. I think if you're very wealthy, there is kind of a playbook, and you are generally able to, with rare exceptions, achieve escape velocity.
And by these people, you don't mean bad, you mean elite. It's rigged in favor of the elite?
Yeah, I think, to go back to your Venn diagram analogy, where bad and elite meet, then you're good.
This reminded me, have you ever seen How I Met Your Mother?
I'm so embarrassed to say I haven't.
I would think that's below your pay grade. Riley's going to help us cue up a clip, but there's a Matrix that Barney Stinson, one of the characters in How I Met Your Mother, that you don't look dissimilar to, actually. It's Neil Patrick Harris.
I was going to say anything wait, it is Neil Patrick
Yes.
Harris? Yeah. That's amazing. I haven't been getting that my whole life.
Okay, great.
I haven't been getting that since Doogie Howser. People have been saying this to me my whole life. You asked what was the terrible thing that happened to you.
Yes.
It's that.
But I didn't put that together until right at that moment.
Yeah, it just happens to feature my doppelganger.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
That's German.
Can we cue the first clip, please?
Wait, hot crazy scale? Let me illustrate. A girl is allowed to be crazy as long as she is equally hot. Thus, if she's this crazy, she has to be this hot. If she's this crazy, she has to be this hot. You want the girl to be above this line, also known as the Vicky Mendoza diagonal.
Do you think that we have like an elite grift axis or matrix that we let people who are this powerful do that bad stuff?
You know, the fall of Weinstein is interesting, right? In the sense that would be a kind of dramatic counterexample. But then you look at how long it took and how extreme he was. And we've all heard these conversations, right, ever since with Weinstein-type figures, where people will say, with like the possible exception of Jeffrey Epstein, people will say, well, like, he wasn't Harvey Weinstein. You know, it's like immediately we reset the bar, right? And everybody's below the kind of the Weinstein curve, right? But that's a weird place to set the bar in terms of professional behavior.
You were around all these charismatic characters. By the way, Harvey Weinstein was like very much like for a long time, you know, courted all kinds of favor in Hollywood because he was so charming to so many people, despite being completely uncharming and horrific. You kind of insulate yourself from these charmers by doing what we call in journalism a write-around. Explain what a write-around is.
So
You can correct me. You want to correct me on something? Go ahead.
only on the insulating part.
Yes.
Only on all of your questions.
Go ahead. I'll ask a question. You provide a footnote, then you can
There we
answer
go.
it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Which nobody will read. So, you know, in journalism, a lot of journalism is geared very much toward access. You want to write a story about somebody, you need to get an interview, and if they won't play ball and they say, I'm not going to give you an interview, then that's it, kind of end of story.
For example, tonight when I asked Patrick to do this interview, he was like, well, you have to say I look like Neil Patrick Harris.
And then the whole thing is I'm going to pretend I don't like it when people say
Yes,
that.
exactly.
Yeah. A lot of the time, if the person won't play ball, it's kind of game over. From my first piece in The New Yorker 20 years ago, have written about people who often don't want to be written about or won't give me an interview. Sometimes they're dead. Sometimes, for one reason or another, they don't want to talk. You know, in the case of the Sacklers, they were actively threatening to sue me the whole time I wrote about them.
But they never did.
They never. Oh, but this is the
there's
whole
no cause.
playbook. Is they
Yeah.
all threaten to sue, and then very few of them actually do.
Yeah.
So a write-around is kind of interesting. You have to, I think, often work harder than you would if you could just get the interviews. And I try and talk to as many people I know as I can who know the person and get a hold of emails, documents, anything I can to help kind of bring them alive on the page.
What is the wildest request that's been made to you in exchange for access?
Well, I mean, I often don't grant those.
Yeah, but I'm curious what
requests.
request has been
Oh,
made.
geez.
I'll share
I
one
mean,
too. You go first.
You know, when I was writing about, I wrote a big piece about Mark Burnett, who was
Yes.
the reality TV producer who cast Trump in The Apprentice.
The fantastic story of the man that made The Apprentice, but really a man made Trump.
Made Trump, yeah. Very fun story. It's in Rogues, and and at the beginning, I made it very clear what I wanted to write about him. Mark Burnett was still doing interviews for things, but it was for his reality TV shows. And when I made it clear that I didn't care too much about his new reality TV shows, what I wanted to talk
What
about
was
was
his
Donald
newest?
Trump. I don't even remember. I mean, it was, you know, like whatever,
Yeah.
the Survivor season
Yeah.
84.
Yeah.
And they basically froze me out at that. But he wouldn't talk about the one thing that anybody wanted to hear from him about, which was Donald Trump. I will say, in the case of that story, speaking of write-arounds, he had these two ex-wives. So there were
kind of
people
source?
who talked about
Yeah.
Mark Burnett, even if Mark Burnett wouldn't talk.
During the mayoral elections last year, Cuomo's team wanted me to not ask him about the sexual harassment stories. And they said that to me on the record, so I can say that. But I didn't think I could get anything new from him on it. I really wanted to ask him about his like forays into Islamophobia at that moment. But they were so worried about the women thing, and I couldn't get the interview because I wouldn't agree.
Oh, that's
I don't know
interesting.
that they
So
would have
even though you
definitely
didn't
given
put,
it.
so that's interesting to me because I could see a scenario for me in which I'm trying to think of what the thing would be. It's like if the person comes and they say, no matter what, don't ask about the hair piece.
Yeah.
And I don't care about the hair piece, like I care about the
Yeah.
sexual harassment.
Yeah.
I would probably be okay with that deal.
You would be okay with the deal, really?
I mean, The hairpiece deal, yeah, sure.
The hairpiece
I guess
deal.
what I'm saying is
but
like,
the hairpiece, I don't think the sexual, like taking that off the table cannot ever be a hairpiece, right?
I think I'm confused about our metaphors here. What's
I mean, the sexual harassment allegations are not like a hairpiece. I'm like,
But
I'm not going to
he's a
spend time.
candidate for office.
I mean,
Yeah,
he's a candidate for office. He's
You
a
have
public
to
figure.
try.
I think
You have to
try.
make a run.
And also, it's like I have to ask the question because it's like, why didn't you fucking ask the question?
I mean, I think that there's a kind of challenge that I sometimes have. So my book, Say Nothing, one of the big characters is Jerry Adams, and Jerry Adams wouldn't talk with me for the book. And people sometimes say, what would you ask him if you could get an interview with Jerry Adams? And it's one of these things where it's like it would be like interviewing an answering machine. Like the man he's so on message. It would be pointless. Like, of course. I'm an open, like if Jerry Adams, if you're out there, still eager to talk, I'd be delighted, But the truth is, I don't think there's anything I could actually add to the record in that conversation.
And I felt that same way about this, but I think there's the idea of like agreeing.
Yeah, I hear you.
It gets like murky. Is there like a philosophical reality to the right around for you too? Like there's a pragmatic thing. Okay, I don't want to get into this access negotiations with people, but is there a philosophical reality where you think everybody around you knows you better than you know you, and you can know more by doing it the other way around?
I did recently have this experience, this very disconcerting experience of when this new book came out. There was a profile of me in the New York Times.
Yes.
And
can a journalist be a celebrity?
Yeah. Funny story about that. So the headline, which I was not crazy about, was a lovely piece. The piece came out really well. I was happy about it. The headline was, "Can a journalist be a celebrity?" And my wife opened the article and did what you should never do, which is go in the comments. And she was like, all these comments are like, "I've never heard of this guy." So I think we have our answer. So that guy, Jonah Bromwich, who wrote that piece, is like a really...
Jonah's a great reporter.
He's an amazing reporter,
yeah.
Who like covered the Trump trial, wrote a book about it. Really kind of hard-nosed city desk reporter. And he talked to like 70 people who know me.
He did the write around on you? Wait, he also interviewed you.
And I kept saying like, I'll talk anytime you want. Like, I'll give you everything you need. And I kept getting these emails from like random people I went to high school with saying, I heard from this New York Times reporter. It was terrifying. It was useful for me to kind of be on the other end of that power equation. I always am very earnest when I ask people to talk to me. I always want them to. Jerry Adams, Mark Burnett, name it.
Yeah.
I'm fully here for it. I mean it in very good faith.
Of course.
I'm not discouraged when they don't. I think where I get sort of philosophically antsy is like I wrote a big piece about Larry Gagosian, the art dealer, for the New Yorker. And Larry exists, with all due respect to any people who are arts reporters in the room tonight, he exists in this like matrix of people who want things from him, and he's a big, powerful figure. And there's a lot of people in the art press who've covered him for many, many years, I think, with kid gloves. And there were a couple of moments along the way, he did participate in that, where there was just this amazing moment where I really wanted to go to one of his parties, because I thought that Larry's parties are a big part of how he does his business. Yeah,
it's transaction.
Yes, transaction central.
Yeah.
And I kept saying, I was actually at his house in the Hamptons the day before his Memorial Day party. And I kept trying to angle into the party. And there was this point where he kind of chuckled and he said, like, "I'll tell you what, let's see how your article comes out. And then maybe I'll invite you to one of my parties." And I was like, or Larry, maybe you won't. Like, do you think that that's what this is about? And that's the sense in which philosophically I actually feel as though it can almost be corrupting if you're on a beat to sort of have somebody kind of dangle some little thing that you might want next time. I'm very...
Of course. Did you get invited to a Larry Gagosian party?
I let the record show, I have never been invited to a
But it
Gagosian
is a
party.
wild world, those parties, because it's like the whole art world, like art is like, I don't know what the word is, like greenwashing, art washing, like access, like Steve Cohen wants to sit next to
Jennifer Lawrence.
Wait.
Just to randomly...
Just saying, randomly. That's never...
What a coincidence.
What a coincidence that we both said that at the same time. But yes, I do think that this world of like transacting is very, very real. And most of the time, you don't get invited back. Like Mark Burnett didn't like you. Larry Gagosian didn't invite you to the party.
I almost never get invited back,
But El Chapo Guzman more than invited you. You get a call from El Chapo Guzman's team.
From his team, from his reps. Yeah.
From his reps. What do you call it? His cronies? What's the word?
Exactly.
His cronies.
I think it was CAA.
They represent me too. All the grifters.
Yeah, so I wrote a big piece about. I wrote two pieces about El Chapo. One for the New York Times Magazine, and then one for the New Yorker.
Mm-hmm.
This is after he was captured the first time before he escaped the second time, and I wrote a big piece about him. It was a write around. He wasn't available to speak with me because he was at a prison in Mexico. And,
you should have just waited a few months.
Exactly. Yeah. Busily figuring out how to escape from it, it turns out. The article came out. I didn't have any expectation that he would read it, in part because he's like supposed to be, he's said to be illiterate, basically.
He does like voice notes for everything.
Right, exactly. I did figure out he was able to text a little bit in a kind of rudimentary way, but he didn't, like, even if he could read, he didn't strike me as a New Yorker subscriber, but there was some stuff about him in the piece, just a lot. I mean, little things that if I thought he was going to read, there's a lot of stuff about his Viagra use. Like he was moving from safe house to safe house, and it turned out that the biggest logistical concern was not like his life, keeping him safe, staying away from surveillance. It was getting him all the Viagra that he needed.
I know you really gave like El Chapo's midlife crisis because like the three themes in that piece, which I remember, is like Viagra, younger women go together, and Blackberry Messenger or something.
Blackberry Messenger was his big thing. Yeah, exactly.
He was giving like real old.
No, it was all of that, and there was but the Viagra stuff was like there was a DEA guy who I interviewed who was like doing all this surveillance, and he realized that so much of the logistics was not even about like cocaine; it was about Viagra, and but the great line that he had was he said he ate it like candy, but so that all those details got picked up in all the major newspapers in Mexico, which was another thing I hadn't really thought through, but of course it happened. And then I got a call from this lawyer who said that he represented the Guzman family.
Yeah.
And I was very nervous. He left a voicemail in my office. And I remember I called David Remnick at the New Yorker and I said, what do I do?
The editor-in-chief of New York.
I called a source of mine who was a law enforcement guy, and I asked him to run the name of the attorney. And he said the thing that he came back with was he was like, oh yeah, for sure. He's one of those cartel attorneys. But the thing is, he's one of those cartel attorneys who's like, 70% cartel and 30% attorney. And I was like, this is not what I want to hear. And
okay, so it was a guy from the cartel, basically.
I was terrified.
And you take the call.
I took the call. I called him back with my hand shaking. And the thing that he said, I've told this story many times, but they all call him El Señor. And he said, El Señor is ready to write his memoirs. Which was not where I expected things to go at all. Yeah. And so I didn't know what to say. And I was like, that's a book I'd like to read.
Yeah.
And he was very, very serious and solemn. And he said, but sir, is it a book you would like to write? And he made this pitch to me I couldn't get into the prison, but like one of Chapo's daughters was going to go in and do all the interviews. And then she'd come out and we'd co-write. And it was a whole
co-write it?
Yeah, it was a whole thing.
How much money?
We didn't get into the details. I said,
how much Viagra?
I said, yeah, exactly. I said, well, I have one question for you, sir. I said no, before the call was out.
I feel like you should have done a reporting to get a number.
Even when it's like a celebrity ghostwriter situation, that sometimes the relationship between the ghostwriter and the subject breaks down at a certain point.
Yeah.
I was like, this doesn't seem like a situation I want to be in with Chapo Guzman, but thank you.
So, yeah, are you ever afraid of your subjects? Like, are you afraid of like a hit from El Chapo Guzman?
No, I mean...
Are you afraid of being NFI'd from Larry Gagosian's party?
Well, so, I mean, the funny thing is, interestingly, it's only the rich people who actually ever threaten me. It's not the gangsters. Truly.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a guy who's a character in this new book, a guy named Andy Baker, who's like a kind of gangster in England. And he got out of prison and I arranged to see him. He's actually back in prison now, but I had to go and get in a car, which you're never supposed to do. If they're journalists here, you're never supposed to get in the car. After the journalist gets killed, the other journalists will kind of quietly be like, oh, that's so terrible. Shouldn't have gotten in the car.
Literally.
And I had to get in a car. And so I had there was a friend who had a pen on my phone. There were people who had instructions for what to do if I didn't call them by a certain hour. And And I went to see him at a coffee shop in Swansea, of all places, in Wales. It's funny, we were in Swansea and he said, "Swansea, the graveyard of ambition."
Is it?
I mean,
factual?
It kind of is.
Yeah.
He kind of shook my hand, looked me in the eye, got right in my space, big smile, and asked after my wife and children by name.
Oh. Okay.
And wasn't saying he's going to do anything bad, just wanted me to know he knows who they are.
Did that have a chilling effect?
I mean, I was very chilled by that.
Yeah.
I should say,
On
we
your
then
reporting, not you, yeah.
we then kind of hit it off.
Yeah.
And when this book came out, he called me from prison in Wales to congratulate me.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah.
If he sent anything for your wife and kids, don't give it to them.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, he doesn't come off that bad, I guess.
No, I mean, I actually think he's done some really bad things.
Yeah.
And sometimes this is a criticism of my work. He's a human being, and
Yeah.
I show him in, I think, 3 dimensions, which, might be distasteful to some people. But I think that was all he wanted. He said to me, just be honest, and I was.
Yeah.
Little cliffhanger. We'll be right back. All right, today's sponsored dumb question is from me, Nayeema Raza, and I'm telling you to subscribe, follow, share this show. Share it with people in your life. Send it to an ex-boyfriend who has nothing better to do because he just misses you all the time. Send it to an ex-girlfriend who you want to be your future girlfriend again. Send it to your mom or that aunt who has a lot of time and keeps sending you life advice. Because this show is an independent show. I make it every week with a great team. But to keep things running, I really need you guys to help me grow the show. And I so appreciate that you listen, that you watch, that you tune in every week. Please continue to do that. I'm forever grateful. Now back to the episode.
We'll move to London Falling, this new book that you have out. And the story really is around this young man, Zach, who has 2 surnames, and you can explain why. So tell us a little bit about Zach Brettler.
So Zach Brettler was a boy who lived in London. He was born in the year 2000. He grew up in a very loving, very kind of comfortable, pretty well-off family who had a nice apartment in West London. His dad worked in finance. His dad's name is Matthew. The mom is a freelance journalist. Her name is Rochelle. He had a big brother, Joe. And Zach, Zach was kind of a fun. It's funny that we would be here having this conversation.
Yeah.
I think Zach had some of the qualities of a stand-up comic in the sense that from an early age, he was somebody who was kind of living his life, but then he was always taking the things that he was experiencing and kind of rearranging them into stories. And they were funny stories. Sometimes he would kind of twist the truth a little bit. Very high emotional intelligence, always kind of reading somebody's face to see what engaged them. But he kind of turned into a bit of a fabulist, and he was really obsessed with wealth and kind of blingy, sort of ostentatious. There's a culture in London now of kind of Bentleys and mansions, and that was what he was into.
So we're going to show one of his key sources of inspiration in a moment. But before we get there, I'm curious, people in the room, we live in a city that is in many ways opulent, not to the same extent I think London is at all. It's not, New York is grittier for sure. But I'm curious, how many people here just shout, laugh, scream, whatever you want. How many of you have lied, embellished something on, say, a resume or your presentation of yourself externally? Oh, come on.
Serious undercount.
Okay. Here's one.
Come on.
How many of you
How about the people who are
just
lying right now? Totally.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, come on, guys. How many of you have lied in some course of your life? Do it again. Okay. Thank you for your honesty in this moment. How many people have come to believe their own lie? It was started as a fib and it becomes part of a story.
Come on.
Have you ever lied? Have you ever embellished?
Yeah.
Not in your reporting, but in your...
Not in my reporting, no. But I mean... Yeah, listen, I think any of us tell stories about ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think we tell them to ourselves. I think we tell them to people around us. And they can kind of harden into truth over time. And so it's not that there are big lies. When I was young, when I was in my 20s, I kind of convinced myself that I was a writer and it was all going to happen for me. And it really wasn't. I mean, in a way, objectively, if you look at my life at that
you went
age.
around dinner parties and said, I'm a writer?
Well, no, there's a story that I've been thinking of, which is that there's an old friend of mine who it's a whole complicated thing, but after college, I got this fellowship and we were going to the UK and everybody was on the same plane. So it's all these young people in their early 20s. They've just gotten out of college. They were all flying on the same plane overnight to the UK. Everybody's like euphoric and having a great time. And I took out my laptop. I'd completely forgotten about this and started like self-importantly typing. And this guy, Tim, was like, "What are you doing?" You know? And I said, I said, "I'm working on an article," you know? And it's that kind of thing, right? I mean, I shudder to tell you that story, but I think any of us do that kind of thing, right?
I've spent time in my life in London, and I feel London is a city that in particular kind of seduces you with its like the wealth and power. And in many ways, it's very different to America. America, everyone's like bending over backwards to tell you how much they struggled. Like even Patrick Radden Keefe, like award-winning writer, is like, "I struggled as a writer." No, not really. But I mean, kind of, right? That's the American story. Like every Rockefeller is telling you how their great-great-grandfather struggled to make it here. And in England, like people are house poor. They are often like, they really cling to their aristocracy, and everyone's trying to tell you how kind of important and rich and wealthy they are. I think Zach Bretler and the way you've written him is a very relatable character. And part of what inspires his initial story, I want to play a clip of it, is a film, which is
The Wolf of Wall Street.
You know what a fugazi is?
Oh, Fugazi. It's fake.
Yeah, fugazi, it's a wazi, it's a woozy, it's a fairy dust.
Was all this legal? Absolutely not. We were making more money than we knew what to do with.
Well, it don't work for you, man.
Yeah, my money taped to your boobs. Technically, it did work for me.
What's wrong, Daddy?
But watch it, you bring home. Oh my God.
FBI. Any kind of booze you might want? No, the Bureau forbids us from drinking. Duh.
should be a cautionary tale, but it's kind of sexy.
Yeah.
The way it's presented. And what was the impact of that and other mythology on Zach?
That was Zach's favorite movie, and he watched it again and again. And there was another movie, War Dogs, which some of you might have seen, weirdly also with Jonah Hill. Jonah Hill is the 6 degrees of Jonah Hill in this story. And he loved these stories about kind of young hucksters on the make, maybe a little criminally inclined, but taking a really big swing. It's strange, right? Because I think The Wolf of Wall Street is a weird movie because technically it's a cautionary tale and that he ends up in prison in the end. But you get the vibe even off of that this is it's like a little bit of a celebration of this guy's moxie.
Yeah, he gets to roll with Margot Robbie. It's like,
Say no more.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
And so Zach, when he turns 18, incorporates a business. And the name that he gives the business is Omega Stratton. And I think Omega is a reference to the watch, just the watch, the James Bond, like Swiss watch. Stratton is a reference to Stratton Oakmont, which is the crooked brokerage firm in the Wolf of Wall Street. So just like take a second to wrap your minds around that, that at 18, this was, he took this movie and essentially kind of pulls, like in a very conscious way, pulls the name of that crooked business out and thinks, I'm going to name my business after the dodgy business in the Wolf of Wall Street.
And another one of his great heroes is Vladimir Putin. And he decides that he will pull out of thin air a Russian daddy, a Russian oligarch dad.
Yeah. Who here has done that? I think I found the original person that he did this with, but he meets a guy one night at a kind of a function. This is when he's 18. And Zach was very quick-witted. And because of that thing, I was talking about this sort of stand-up comic thing, he's always like telling little lies and little fibs and kind of seeing what you'll buy.
He's testing his material.
Totally. There's a story actually in the book about when he was in high school. The interesting thing is the kids in the story all see through this stuff. It's the grown-ups who believe the lies. But in high school, he was sitting around with friends, and he was a big athlete. And he told his buddies that New Balance wanted to sponsor him. And they all started laughing, and they all said, "Oh, Zach, you're full of shit. You're a compulsive liar." And Zach really seemed to kind of take this personally, and he kind of got a little quiet, a little sad. And he said, "No, you're right. You're right. I am. I'm a compulsive liar. It all started when I had this terrible accident." And they were like, "Zach, you're doing it again."
Yeah.
It's so compulsive.
Yeah.
And in this case, he met this guy, and he said, "I'm the son of a Russian oligarch here in London. My name is Zach Ismailov. My father has a huge fortune. I'm helping him invest hundreds of millions of dollars." And the guy who actually worked for Chelsea Football Club, which at the time was owned by a real Russian oligarch, Roman Abramovich, bought the story and started introducing him to people.
And that's very, because when he met him, he's like wearing this tracksuit, which is British for sweatsuit. And he's walking around, and it's kind of like you quote Fran Lebowitz in another piece of writing, I think, about Mark Burnett, saying that Donald Trump is what a poor person's imagination of a rich person would look like. And in this case, it's like Zach seems to be what a rich person's imagination of a rich Russian oligarch son would look like, right? He plays the part masterfully.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing that's so interesting about him is that he was very, he dresses down. He dresses in this very understated way. As he starts to get to know some of these older men who think that he's this son of an oligarch.
Yeah, he's a teenager, and he's hanging out with all these like 40-something-year-old
guys
dudes.
in their 40s and 50s who incidentally want his money, or the money they think he has. But like he told them all that he lived at, there's this obnoxious building in London and Knightsbridge called One Hyde Park, which when it was built, their whole thing was they called it, they said, it's the most expensive residential housing development ever built anywhere, ever in the world. So that was funny. I also thought it was like, Versailles with like a word. So Zach would wait outside. Like he'd say like, come pick me up at my place, One Hyde Park. And they would drive up and he'd always be outside the building, presumably having just come down in the elevator, right? Yeah. But they never actually saw him walking out of the building. So he's very good at that stuff. I asked one of these guys, did you Google him? Like if his dad is a real Russian oligarch? And the answer was fascinating. He said, the thing is, people who are have real means are not on the internet.
Which is not incorrect.
It's true.
Yeah, that's true. I think that, so basically he ends up kind of swindling these men, but not really, because what he's getting is like, they want access to daddy's fortune. At some point in the story, his fake father dies. He's needs help. And so they're buying him dinners. They're taking him to Annabelle's. They're taking him to Five Hartford. And they think they're going to get this big payday for their friendship, effectively. I mean, you talk a little bit about the book and speak a little bit about the research around gullibility and lying and like the ways in which we in everyday society allow ourselves to be lied to because it's just like too much of a pain to fact check everyone, I think is something you kind of allude to.
You kind of have to, right? Yeah. As you move through the world. I just think that I think most of us take it for granted as we move through life that people are being basically straight with us because it would just be too paralyzing if you were completely skeptical and on guard all the time. And I think Zach took advantage of that. I will say, I think there's something to this idea that the kids could see through it because Zach wasn't just a digital native, he was a social media native. And I think that there is something about kids who were born in this century where they're way more attuned than people in their 40s and 50s to the idea that everybody's got a filter on the photo, that like everybody's putting some kind of spin on their presentation. And so Zach was kind of constantly, kind of putting on these different guises, these different masks. And the kids would always just say, like, you're so full of shit, you're a regular kid just like me. Whereas the adults said, an oligarch, you say.
Yeah. And it's so sad for his parents because, I mean, for the bulk of the book, Zach is missing. He's gone. He's thrown himself off a bridge. And this book is really an investigation into how that happened, why that happened, is there culpability, is there not? And you're doing in a lot of ways, like a lot of the work that the Metropolitan Police didn't do. Because like they just don't, why? Why didn't they do that work? Because like, for example, I just want to say, like there are parts of this book that Patrick's like, that, you find a source by looking at the Instagram followers. It's like you could be a great ex-girlfriend. You look at the Instagram followers of like the puppy dog of like a charlatan 40-something-year-old dude and find the crony that you need to talk to. So you're able to do this. And the Metropolitan Police, after a teenager goes missing, dies, is not able to do this.
Some of you may watch British police procedurals on BritBox and have like you may still have a sense of like the overweening competence of Scotland Yard. Scotland Yard, I think, still has quite good branding, but not actually a state-of-the-art police force at this point. And so this is partially a story about these parents who their kid goes missing initially and then turns out to be dead. I think initially they put their faith in the authorities and sort of thought, okay, they're going to get to the bottom of this. They're going to figure this out. And this kind of slow process in which they realize that's not going to happen, that actually nobody's coming to help. And then they have to kind of activate. I mean, a big part of what this book is about is these two parents who have to kind of become detectives themselves to do the work the police didn't do and figure out how their son died, but also really who he was in life in a way that they couldn't really appreciate while he was alive.
These cities, New York, London, Hong Kong, LA, I've lived in all of them, actually. I think there's like a reality of there's so much wealth proximate to you, and it's also so out of reach at the same time. And it can be a really corrupting force. As these parents, like, they have no idea that their son, they have a little bit of an idea, but not enough of an idea of, like, their son is hanging out with these 40-something-year-olds at these nightclubs. His mom thinks maybe he's having an affair with this woman who's much older. But how did you, as a parent, did it just make you want to, like, leave New York City?
Yeah. I will say, I think New York is not as bad as London in this respect. Like, we have obviously huge extremes of income inequality in this city. We have huge concentrations of wealth in this city. But in terms of I think it's literally just the kind of physical architecture of the city, the fact that it's like, it's not, if you're the kind of person who wants to have a $400,000 car, the Upper East Side or Tribeca may not be the best place to keep it. And so in a strange way, you have to kind of go out to the Hamptons to see all those cars. I think there's something about the physical layout of the city where it's not quite as in your face. There is no analog to Mayfair, if any of you know London, this neighborhood in London that's just so over the top. What's funny is I've been touring around talking about this book all over the place. And I was in Miami. Like, you go to Miami and you describe Mayfair and every head in the place is like, oh yeah, yeah.
Mayfair is what Miami wishes it could be
Exactly.
if it had class.
Yeah.
But there are a bunch of private members clubs opening up around New York. Like, this is a new wave of the city. Do you worry about it becoming more London-esque?
I mean, I do. Yeah. I think that I think some of these trends are not specific to London. We're going to see them everywhere. I think generally that, I will say the thing with Zach, this kid, is there's a temptation to look at it and think that he was on some grift and he had some plan. There's something a little bit the talented Mr. Ripley about him. He's kind of insinuating himself into the lives of other people. But the thing that's so tragic is that all he wanted was to get past the velvet rope. Like, he was at 18. He didn't have a plan. He wasn't thinking several steps out. He never got any money, really, to speak of from these guys. He actually spent the money that he had.
Yeah, he had like these 18,000 pounds or something.
He had all this money from his bar mitzvah and from various gifts from his grandparents.
Sweet.
And he just burned through it, paying for meals and Ubers. And when he dies, like, these guys think that he's got hundreds of millions of pounds. And he had 4 pounds in his account. But to the point of private clubs and that idea of kind of access and exclusivity, and there's always another room. There's always a kind of, it's like the last door, right? Like, there's always some kind of more exclusive sanctum. I think if you're a young kid, that's very destabilizing. And the craziest thing, if anybody reads the book, is that Zach was, like, on the continuum. Like, this kid was pretty well off. Like, the idea that he would feel like he didn't have enough, you realize something very sick is going on here.
When I was reading, I kept thinking "Fake It Till You Make It," "Fake It Till You Make It," which is a real anthem of American life, and ambition and success. I'm curious, obviously, Zach didn't make it, but do you have a sense? Like, there's a scene here where there's a picture his mother looks at of somebody who drew of him at 40. Like, do you have a sense that if he had kept going, he would make it?
Yeah, I think about this a lot. I mean, I think it's funny because there's a way of reading this story where you say, oh, this kid was this like reckless fabulist who invented these stories and kind of flew too close to the sun and died. There's another way of reading it, which is that he actually kind of had our number. Like, he sort of knew how the world works at this point in this century. I think he looked around, and like a lot of young people, I think the future seemed really uncertain to him. I think he didn't know what the job market was going to look like He didn't know, was he ever going to be able to own his own home? I think he was kind of taken with these like all or nothing fables, these stories of people who are kind of faking it. They kind of go out there and they lie. They're failures, but they pretend to be successes. They just keep kind of upping the ante and upping the ante. And how can I put this delicately? If you look around when Zach is like 16, 17, 18 years old in 2016, 17, 18, I think there are good indications that if that's your MO, you can go all the way to the top.
Yes, put it not delicately. I think everyone understood the subtext.
I mean, my story about Donald Trump and Mark Burnett is a story about a guy who was like, anybody who's here and lived in New York and is old enough to remember, like he was a punchline on page 6. He was a joke. He was a carnival barker. And there's this kind of amazing act of like transubstantiation through which he like goes through The Apprentice and he comes out the other side and he is this symbol of prosperity and success. And it worked, right? And I feel as though there's so much. So I don't think Zach was crazy to look around and be like, all right, well, how do you do this?
No, it's rational. I mean, Anna's here. I mean, like there's a Netflix series, Inventing Anna. There's a, like she's parlayed herself into a new career after the original act. So I think that there's a reality of like people do make it.
I think if Zach had survived that night, he would be a fairly successful up and coming real estate developer in London today.
Yeah.
I do.
It's wild. I was just thinking about you writing this book. It's very different to a write around. You know his parents. You get introduced to them in some ways through a mutual friend. So in some way, it's a friend of friend's kid. It's a friend of friend's.
He was a guy I met randomly. I met him randomly, and he told me about them. But I was introduced to them through a friend of theirs.
Is this like the trickiest book you've had to write?
Yes.
Because of that?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's much easier when the people won't talk to you. I think the challenge for me was I got to know this family very well. They had this very tragic recent loss.
Yeah.
I spent hundreds of hours talking to them. Like occasionally we would have these long sessions talking, 2-3 hours. And then we'd get to the end and Rochelle, the mom, would say, like that felt like a good therapy session. And I'd have to say like, yes, but it wasn't therapy, because I have to go and write about this and I'm going to write about it in a way that may make you uncomfortable in some respects. The version of the story that I tell is not going to be the version that you would write. It's all kind of filtered through me. And so I think the challenge of getting the story from them, there's a lot of, if you read the book, there are family secrets in this book. Like I kind of am who I am. So if you invite me into your life, I'm going to rummage around a little bit. And there are things in the book that they maybe didn't anticipate would be there. I had to write a book where I felt as though I wasn't withholding things out of my sympathy for them.
Right.
And I hoped that I could write a book that they could live with. And I will say 7 weeks ago, we launched the book at a big event here, and they came for it. They were in the room for the launch, and that meant a huge amount to me. So the good news is this is a family that's been through an awful tragedy. It's also a family that's doing okay. They're very emotionally resilient. And I think in a weird way, the process of working with me on this book and having the book be out there in the world for people who know them to read it has been helpful for them.
Yeah, that's beautiful. We'll take a couple of audience questions. We have a couple. Go ahead.
But of all the frauds that are in the world, there's so many to choose from. How do you decide what to write about, what you're going to write about next?
Yeah. All the frauds and rebels.
Yeah, exactly. All the frauds and Steve Cohen. I don't know. I wish I had a kind of analytical answer for it. I've learned over the years to become, I don't overthink this stuff. What I pay the most attention to is my own attention span. And so, we've all had this experience of you get plunked down next to some random person at a dinner party and they start telling you a story and it's deadly boring and you feel yourself just, thinking about how you got to do the laundry tomorrow or whatever else in your mind, hoping that this story will end. And then you've had the experience of somebody telling you a story where you really lean in and you can't get enough of it and you're sort of hanging on their every word. And as I move through life, either reading things or meeting people, what I'm most attuned to is like, am I leaning in? And I can say in retrospect that most of the time those are stories with, it's the investigative melodrama. It's like a little opera. There have to be kind of big characters and sort of twists and turns in the story so that you end in a place that's different from where you started. It's not a thing where I kind of go in and I have ingredients in my mind. It's much more, I'm just constantly asking myself, am I bored? Because I have a real allergy to boredom. And if I find the story remotely boring, I am really going to struggle to make it interesting to you. Because I know that, like, when I write these New York articles, you all have this little device in your pockets that is trying to pull you away from anything that I might hope that you would read. So I need to find something that feels like it has enough juice that I can hold on to you and hopefully get you to, like, put your phone down and just absorb.
Thank you. Next question.
Is there anyone on your radar where you look at them and be like, that guy's full of shit? Or I think I'm going to write about this person. I'm just waiting for the evidence to come out. The Adam Newman of 2026 right now.
I mean, it's kind of an all-you-can-eat buffet, right? Like, I mean, how long you got, right? And sometimes it's not even, like, how do you write about Kash Patel, you know? Like, what's the right register?
Start with a drink and
yeah, exactly.
go from
Like,
there.
but how do you even do it, honestly? I mean, I think for me, the challenge there would be like, what's the right tone for this material? You know, it's like Caligula. Like, it's so over the top. I'm sort of just getting back into it. I wrote a big fun piece for the New Yorker that came out a few weeks ago about this crazy fraud conspiracy in New Orleans involving people deliberately getting into high-speed car accidents with 18-wheelers. And I'm now sort of looking for my next thing. It is a challenge that we live in an era where I think there's almost fatigue with stories like this. And I do think, actually, to bring it back to Netflix, I think to some extent we've kind of trivialized these stories a little bit because we've sort of turned them into this, like, pretty fizzy entertainment. And the sad thing is that, like, you know, Kash Patel is the director of the FBI.
Yeah.
You know, like, I hate to tell you. Yeah, it's an embarrassment of riches.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we have, I think, 2 more questions.
So obviously, you write about liars and fraud, and you mention in your latest book that everyone lies. People embellish their stories. So how do you deal with that in your work with your interview subjects? How do you know that they're not lying or consciously or subconsciously embellishing their stories?
Oh, man, what a great question. Okay, so I could talk all night about this, but just quickly, there's an old saw in journalism, you know, it's kind of an old, like, newspaper, apocryphal story about a newspaper, which is that, you know, the kind of old grizzled city desk editor is advising the young cub and says, if your mother tells you that she loves you, check it out. And I think that's a good impulse generally for everybody in life, but sorry, Mom. But particularly for journalists, just to have a kind of default mode of skepticism. I try and talk to people multiple times. It's a luxury of writing for the New Yorker is that I can spend 6 months on a piece and I can keep coming back. And I do find that it's almost like cross-examining someone or interrogating someone if you're a cop, that you see the story evolve sometimes. I think this stuff is really slippery, and I'll give you one quick example from this book. The Brettlers, when I first met them, would tell me about these conversations that they'd had. And normally it's like the gold standard if you're writing a book or an article, you interview somebody and you say, you know, and then what did you say on that day? And they said, well, I said this, and then he said that, and then I said this, and you've got one of the participants there. Now, at the New Yorker, we would want to cross-check that and have fact checkers or the reporter go to the other party in the conversation. So I did that with the Brettlers. And then at a certain point, they told me that they had actually been recording a lot of those conversations on an iPhone. And Rochelle said, you know, would you like those recordings? Of course, I would like the recordings. There's nothing better. The amazing thing is the way in which the recordings deviated from their memories of those conversations. So this is not people lying to me. This is people who've been through a very traumatic, intense experience, and they remember it differently. And so in a kind of weird way as a journalist, it sort of shook me to my core, because so much of what we do is we go out and we ask people about events that happened in the past that they witnessed, and they tell us. Yeah. And we're sort of trained to think that we should trust them if they're telling the truth. But even if they're telling what they believe to be the truth, sometimes it's actually off.
Yeah. And even if someone else remembers it that way, because they may have been discussing.
Well, this is the other thing. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, last audience question. We have a couple more things we're going to do up here.
My name is Al. You mentioned declining the opportunity to do a memoir for El Chapo. Reasonable. But I was wondering if you had ever done ghostwriting like that before. If not, would you? If you have, how is that different than the investigative work that you've done in the past?
I've never done it, and I honestly, I mean, I don't think I ever. It may be at some point in my life I need a paycheck, and that's a thing that I do. I sort of hope I don't get there, not because I'm casting aspersions at it. There are a lot of people who are really brilliant ghostwriters, and I think it's its own art. I would struggle with it because the thing that is kind of essential for me is I'm filtering everything through my own apparatus, my own sensibility. I mean, this is going to sound a little pretentious, but we've been talking about Larry Gagosian, and I was saying it to Larry Gagosian. When I was talking to him about the piece I was writing, he's somebody who's been painted by a number of really significant painters. And we were talking about what the article would look like. And I said, Larry, it's not going to look like a photo of you. It's going to look like a painting of you. It's being processed through my brain. So you're not going to, like, you guys might look at me and see Neil Patrick Harris.
Indeed.
I'm never going to see Neil Patrick Harris when I look at myself in the mirror. And so that was kind of the slippage that I was getting at. So I think I sort of think of myself as working in a slightly different idiom. And I actually think if I were like your ghostwriter, I would struggle to sort of channel your voice in the way that you might want and be happy with.
And probably even more so because you've developed your own voice to such a extent versus
yeah,
not.
and you don't want the interference of my voice.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to do a little round of paddles. This actually builds on the second question we had, and thank you everyone who asked a question. This is stories that you would be interested in doing. You can say no or yes. You would be interested in telling the story, green, red. Okay, Sam Bankman-Fried, SBF, and the world of crypto. Red, you don't want to do it. Okay,
I
you
don't
talk
want to do it. I talked to him and his mom together.
Compare and contrast his mom and Rochelle Bretler.
Oh, interesting. I mean, I think they would both go to the mat for their sons, I'll tell you that.
Mm-hmm.
A colleague of mine did end up writing about him. I spent some time talking with him and his mom, and I thought, this isn't a piece I want to do.
Because?
I mean, there were a bunch of reasons. One of them was that Michael Lewis's book was about to come out, and I just sort of thought, do I want to be the guy who publishes a big New Yorker piece like 3 weeks before the Michael Lewis book on the same subject comes out?
Yeah.
I do not.
Is it also because crypto kind of bores you?
Well, okay, so
I think it's kind of boring.
this is my struggle, is that it's hard for me to, what I was saying earlier about, what makes me bored. Am I bored? Blockchain.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm already bored.
Yeah.
I don't know how to, I don't know what to do.
It's not sexy. No. Okay, what about Varsity Blues? Aunt Becky from Full House and the parents who did the, college scandals. Such a good, jealous of that,
Totally.
right?
Great story.
Great story. Adam Newman, he keeps on bouncing back. He has his startup. He's raised so much money.
Oh, yeah, but wouldn't I just be kind of perpetuating the problem? I want that guy to go away.
I don't know.
Are you agreeing?
I had a breakfast with him in Miami. And he was wearing shoes, and I felt like I was lied to. Huh?
It's a hat on a hat.
Yeah, exactly. What about Diddy? The Diddy drama.
So did people watch that documentary? I
50
thought it was
Cent watched that documentary.
quite fascinating documentary.
I think it's great.
Yeah.
It is dark and twisted.
I mean, very, very dark, but yeah.
Very dark. Luigi Mangione. Would he be? He would be like okay. I think he counts as a rebel and a killer, guys, but yes.
Watch this space.
Oh, really? Did I just get a
I don't know
scoop?
for sure, but, we'll see.
Tell us more.
I mean, it is an idea that we have discussed. I mean, part of it is
You
like
and Luigi?
No.
You and hot Luigi?
No, I'm not one of the many people who write him letters. No, but it's a really interesting story to me.
Yes.
And depending on what happens with the trials and what happens, I mean, at the New Yorker, there are lots of people and lots of different priorities, and so I would never presume. But there may be some universe in which, in terms of my timing and the timing of the trials and the coverage at the New Yorker, that I could write something.
I look forward to reading this piece in fall of 2026.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, who knows when? I will tell you that right after the shooting, actually before he had been identified, somebody who shall remain nameless called me up and said, "You have to write about this." It's empire of pain meets say nothing. It's like it's rapacious healthcare capitalism meets political violence.
Yeah, sounds up your alley. What about the story of a grift, potential grift, alleged grift of the Trump ballroom? I think that's a good story.
I think so.
You should write that story. Because you famously, like the one story you put away, or one of the stories you put away, I don't know how many you have, but was about Jared Kushner and Donald Trump, who love your...
It was about Jared and Ivanka.
Yeah, Jared and Ivanka.
Yeah.
And you decided not to tell that story because?
I think I was dealing with this thing that I'm still dealing with, which is what happens when you expose a certain kind of behavior and then nothing happens. For any of us who do this for a living, it just changes the I grew up on all the president's men.
Yeah.
There's a sense that sometimes if something kind of questionable is happening, you work really hard, you expose it, and then some referee steps in, whether it's Congress or, prosecutors or whoever.
Yeah.
And I think I worried that if all we're doing is a kind of outrage porn about the Trump administration, that we might actually weirdly be adding to the problem. I don't know what the answer is, but that was like the circle that I couldn't square.
I think it does get into that same level of boring. And Elon has that too. Like Elon has shades of boring too.
Yeah.
It's like you're so bored of hearing about him, right? I want to get back. I told you I was going to ask you about Jonah's piece in the New York Times that can a journalist be a celebrity? Your wife says no. People in this crowd would say, the number of people, when I told them I was interviewing Patrick Radden Keefe, people said, is he single? Was out of control.
My wife says no.
She does know. But you've modeled for J. Crew. You played yourself in industry. A question for you that I also want to ask Gavin Newsom. Do you think you would be as successful if you were less charismatic or attractive? Less Patrick Harris looking?
You'll ask Neil Patrick Harris, honestly, because that guy, he's struggling.
No, but does it play a role in your own success?
I think that this is like the most awkward question I've ever been asked in my life.
I try to do here.
Listen, I do think that I think that the thing that I love most about the job and that I think I'm good at, and on some level I think I was always good at, but I've gotten better at, is every day brings a new encounter with a new kind of person, and you have to find some wavelength to communicate with those people on. And sometimes that's an MIT professor, and sometimes it's the deputy national security advisor, and sometimes it's a runner for a Mexican drug cartel. And I love about the job having to kind of find that register, and it's always different with everybody. And I think that there is an element of, I don't know about charisma, but just kind of human connection, being able to sort of look people in the eye, listen to them, find a way to ingratiate is maybe too cheap a word, but it's just like make them sort of have a good enough vibe with you that you can find your way to something. And I don't know, would it be different if I was somebody who was kind of naturally ornery? Listen, I know some great
reporters
who are they're like animals who aren't house trained. I mean, you wouldn't have these people in your home, and they get unbelievable stories. So I don't know that it's a requirement. But it helps.
Okay. I end every episode of Smart Girl Dumb Questions asking my guests a dumb question you have that you don't know the answer to.
What is the blockchain?
All right. Thank you so much, my guest, Patrick Radden Keefe.
Thank you.
The book is called London Falling. I could not recommend it highly enough. It's an excellent book. It's a very sad book. A big thank you to Liz, to Riley, to the team at the Comedy Cellar for having us here tonight. Thank you for getting us our dinner, our drinks, our checks. Thank you to my team, Desta, Melissa, Sanjana, Davey, Johnny. And thank you to Jason Chatfield, who introduced us tonight. He drew pictures of us. Jason's work is actually in the New Yorker. You can find him at New York Cartoons. It's great. Thank you to Isaac Chotner, who's part of the reason who inspired the interview tonight. Thank you, Anna, for coming here shamelessly, which I kind of love. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Patrick. Was it really the most awkward question you've been asked in your life?
Pretty awkward.
You didn't fully answer.
So our exit music from the Comedy Cellar was fittingly It Wasn't Me by Shaggy. And it was wild that Anna Delvey was there. We're going to get back to that in a second. But first I need to fact check Claude that Patrick Radden Keefe is actually very funny. His stuff, it reads like fiction, but it's not. It is nonfiction. I think it was so clever for him to tell the story of Zach Bretler. This is the opposite of that kind of Wolf of Wall Street trailer. There's money, there's like private clubs in London and all that stuff. But when a teenager throws himself off a bridge at the opening of your book, you know it's going to be a cautionary tale. And there's just no doubting that in a world where we do have so much fraud porn, like Inventing Anna on Netflix. And now back to Anna Delvey. It was wild to have her there. I did invite her there. Anna Delvey, for those of you who don't know her, is a New York City character. She actually also took on this appearance of being an heiress and was conning and was found guilty of defrauding a number of people in New York City. And since then, she got out of jail. I actually reached out to her originally when she got out of jail to see if maybe I'd do an interview with her. This is like 5 years ago. And I've run into her at a bunch of New York City parties since then. And I just reached out to her like, hey, we're doing this event at the Comedy Cellar. I sent her the link. It was for fraud, grift, fakes. And she wrote back like, I was like, oh, you might find it interesting. And she wrote back that she was a fan. And so she showed up and she told me she really enjoyed the conversation. If you want to come out and enjoy the conversation, the best way to learn about this is to follow us on social media at SmartGirlDumbQuestions or drop us an email, nayeemaraza101@gmail.com. We're going to continue to be doing live tapings. Let us know where you'd like us to do them. We will continue to do them at the Comedy Cellar. And I think over time, we should probably build out some kind of email list when you email us so we can do that. Should we do that? Then I could use it to grift you and sell you SGDQ coin on the blockchain, whatever that is. That's it for this episode of Smart Girl Dumb Questions. In my credits above, I forgot to thank Aisha, Ben, Cam, and last but not least, Skylar Gibson, who was our great volunteer for the evening. I'm your host, Nayeema Raza, and I'll see you next week for an all-new Smart Girl Dumb Questions.